First of all, I think it's that I have been in the movement always.
It is from this building that Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, Mexico's first female president, has faced one of the most explosive accusations in modern Mexican politics. The charge came not from a rival politician, but from a New York defense lawyer. Jeffrey Lichtman, who once represented mob boss John Gotti Jr. and El Chapo Guzman himself, now represents Ovidio Guzman Lopez, known as one of the Chapitos. And when Ovidio pleaded guilty in a U.S. courtroom to trafficking staggering amounts of fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and marijuana, his lawyer went on the attack. He blasted Sheinbaum in public. He said her office was corrupt, her government weak, and that she acted like the spokesperson of a cartel instead of the honest leader Mexicans deserved. The president did not let it slide. In front of cameras, she said she would not engage in a back and forth with someone who defends traffickers, but she ordered her attorney general to file a slander suit. She told her country they would not let these accusations stand unanswered. The feud exploded because Sheinbaum had criticized the plea bargain that Ovidio Guzman struck with the United States. She had pointed out that Washington always says it does not negotiate with terrorists. Yet here it had cut a deal with the cartel boss from a group the US itself had designated a foreign terrorist organization. The lawyer fired back. He questioned Mexico's right to lecture the US on cartel prosecutions. He reminded the world that just a few years earlier, Sheinbaum's mentor and predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, had lobbied Donald Trump to return Mexico's former defense minister, Salvador Cienfuegos, to be tried at home. The US agreed. Cienfuegos walked free. Lichtman then drew an even sharper comparison. Osama bin Laden hiding in Pakistan while the government there looked the other way, and Ismael Almeo Zambada, another cartel leader, living openly in Mexico for 40 years without being arrested. He told reporters that if the US could fly Guzman Lopez across the border to face charges, why could Mexico not capture Zambada under its own nose? Sheinbaum responded by calling his words disrespectful. She insisted her government was not in collusion with criminals. She showed statistics that homicides had fallen compared to her predecessor's term. She told citizens the country was safer. But the accusations stuck. They spread across Mexican media and social networks, and in a country long scarred by narco violence, many found themselves asking, is the president protecting the people or protecting the cartels? To understand the weight of this moment, it is important to see who Claudia Sheinbaum is. In September 2024, she took the oath of office as Mexico's 66th president. She had won the June election in a landslide. She became the first woman ever to lead the country and also the first person of Jewish heritage to hold the office. Her story stood out. Her grandparents had fled Lithuania and Bulgaria. She had a PhD in energy engineering, had worked in California at the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, and even contributed to the UN climate change panel that won the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize. She was a scientist turned politician, an environmentalist who had become mayor of Mexico City and a loyal protege of López Obrador. Her campaign promised continuity with his legacy, general social programs, strong nationalist rhetoric, and a promise to address inequality. Critics said this came at the cost of fiscal responsibility and democratic institutions, but voters handed her a sweeping mandate. Her coalition controlled most of Congress. She had the power to change Mexico in her own image. What she inherited, however, was grim. Cartel violence cutting across the country, a ballooning deficit, a justice system shaken by López Obrador's last reforms, which replaced appointed judges with elected ones. Security was the number one concern, and like her predecessor, she embraced a strategy of using the National Guard and social programs while avoiding a frontal war against cartels. That decision would soon place her squarely in the middle of Washington's most aggressive anti-cartel campaign in decades. By early 2025, Donald Trump was back in the White House, and this time he wanted the cartels eliminated, not just contained. His administration designated 6 Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations. That move triggered an avalanche of new powers, harsher penalties, more surveillance, even the legal possibility of drone strikes. Elon Musk, watching from the sidelines, posted online that the designation legislation technically made cartels eligible for drone strikes. It was part joke, part warning. Sheinbaum responded with defiance. In her morning press conference, she said Mexico would cooperate in fighting cartels, especially on synthetic drugs, but would never allow foreign interference or invasion. She reminded the world that 74% of cartel weapons were trafficked from the United States into Mexico. She announced lawsuits against American gun dealers, and she announced new constitutional reforms to protect Mexico's sovereignty. But while she insisted on collaboration, the Trump administration pushed further. A secret order revealed by the New York Times showed Trump had authorized the Pentagon to prepare military operations against cartels abroad. U.S. military planners began drawing up scenarios for direct strikes. Sheinbaum quickly told her people there would be no invasion. She said Washington had informed her of the order. She said Mexico had strict regulations for U.S. agents. She reassured the country no American troops would set foot on Mexican soil. But rumors swirled. Mexican journalist Ian Grillo said sources confirmed the U.S. forces at Fort Bliss, Texas, were already preparing for possible intervention. Two factions inside the White House were fighting, one for dialogue with Mexico, one for military action. Sheinbaum, for now, was buying time. In February 2025, the U.S. Attorney General rolled out a new plan, total elimination of cartels. The strategy shifted from mitigation to eradication. More prosecutions, more resources, more operations. Deportations were fast-tracked. Sanctions piled up. The Treasury and FinCEN targeted Mexican banks for alleged cartel money laundering. Mexico's regulators pushed back, demanding proof. Washington launched Project Portero, a major anti-fentanyl initiative, but Mexico said it had never formally signed on. The friction was growing. Meanwhile, U.S. agencies leaked reports, photographs, and intelligence hinting at Mexican officials compromised by cartel money. But no court had produced hard evidence against Sheinbaum herself. What existed was a fog of accusations, statistics, denials, and rumors. Sheinbaum, standing in front of her chart showing falling murder rates, insisted her government was reducing violence. She said past prosecutions, like the Cienfuegos case, had proven innocence, not guilt. She reminded the public that collaboration with the U.S. did not mean submission, but for many, the optics were devastating. A female scientist who had promised a new era for Mexico now found herself accused of shielding the very organizations terrorizing her people. This is not the first time Mexico's highest office has been linked to the cartels. From allegations that past presidents secret deals, the generals accused of collaborating with traffickers, the line between state and cartel has always been blurred, and cartel has always been blurred. But Sheinbaum's case is different. She's the first woman to lead Mexico, a country where violence against women is a national emergency. She came in promising to strengthen protections, even creating a prosecutor's office for femicide. Her presidency was supposed to symbolize change. Instead, her first year has been consumed by battles with Washington, lawsuits against lawyers, and daily denials of cartel collusion. And across the border, the U.S. escalates. Rewards of $50 million for information on Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro, accused of working with the Sinaloa cartel. National Guard troops deployed along the Rio Grande. Military training scenarios at Fort Bliss, a campaign that looks less like policing and more like preparation for war. So what is real in the storm? Ovidio Guzman Lopez, one of El Chapo's sons, pleaded guilty in the U.S. to trafficking tons of drugs. His lawyer accused Mexico's president of being a cartel mouthpiece. Sheinbaum announced a slander suit. Washington officially labeled 6 cartels terrorist groups. Trump signed orders for military planning. Sanctions were imposed on Mexican banks. Investigations and leaks suggested cartel-state overlap. But here is the key. There is no court-verified evidence proving Sheinbaum personally struck deals with cartels. No document, no ruling, no confession ties her directly. What exists are accusations, political attacks, intelligence leaks, and diplomatic rows. Still, in politics, perception is power, and perception now paints paints Mexico's first female president as being on the defensive against cartels, foreign pressure, and critics who question her loyalty. Today, Mexico sits between two forces. On one side, cartels that control vast parts of the economy through violence and extortion. On the other, the United States demanding eradication, sanctions, and possibly even military force. In the middle stands Claudia Sheinbaum, scientist, loyalist of López Obrador, historic first female president, and now the target of accusations that strike at the heart of her legitimacy. Her challenge is immense. Prove she is tougher on crime than her critics claim, protect Mexican sovereignty without losing U.S. cooperation, keep her coalition united while the peso slides and the deficit grows. For now, she has chosen to sue lawyers, defend her record with statistics, and warn Washington that there will be no invasion. But as history shows, Mexico's drug war has a way of pulling every leader into its chaos. The question is not just whether Sheinbaum is colluding with cartels. The deeper question is whether any Mexican president, male or female, can truly govern a country where cartels, state institutions, and foreign powers are all entangled. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about one accusation, one lawyer, or one president. It is about the future of a country trapped in a conflict that has lasted generations, and whether Mexico's first female leader can break the cycle or become another name caught in its grip.